Hello and welcome to my masterclass on mastering celiac disease. My name is Taylor Silverduke. I'm a registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and today I'm going to walk you through the 12 steps you need to master celiac disease so that you can live the most effective and happiest and safest life with celiac disease without all of the misinformation from Facebook groups and other celiac forums on the internet. This is all of the information you need to know to stay safe with celiac disease in one place, and that's what we're covering today: how to master celiac disease, presented by yours truly, Taylor Silverduke, registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease. So we'll cover briefly the 12 steps that we'll be talking about today, and then we'll dive into each step a little bit more in depth so that you can master celiac disease using these 12 steps. So the steps we'll be covering today include how to identify gluten on a food label, everything you need to know about cross-contact, how to dine out safely with celiac disease, getting people to understand your needs, building a self-care routine to prevent celiac burnout, what to do when you've been glutened, how to enjoy stressful food events, how to travel safely and enjoy it. Yes, it's possible. You can do it headache-free. How to meal plan and budget with celiac disease, how to balance a gluten-free diet for health and healing, how to monitor celiac disease and what follow-up tests you need, as well as how to manage the school environment when it comes to celiac disease. So those are the 12 steps to mastering celiac disease, and I'm going to dive right into talking about how to identify gluten on a food label. This is the first and most essential step to mastering celiac disease. If you don't know how to identify gluten on a food label, you are in deep waters. You're in big trouble. And so it's essential that you know how to do this, and I give you a lot of really quick and easy tools to use in the Celiac Crash Course, complete with practice examples and acronyms that make your life 10 times easier. But if you're doing this on your own, remember the CANS acronym. This is the acronym that I've come up with to help you identify gluten on a food label every single time and feel confident about your choice with food. Is my full 4-step foolproof method, and it stands for C for certifications and claims, A for allergy statement and advisory statement, N for not safe ingredients, and S for suspect ingredients. So this is the acronym you want to hold close to. You want to remember when you're going into grocery stores and identifying if a food item is gluten-free or not. You're going to look for certifications and claims. If it has one, you're good to go. Go ahead and purchase. If it doesn't, look at the allergen statement and advisory statement. See if there's anything you need to be concerned about. And if you're not sure what you're looking for when it comes to the allergen statement and the allergen advisory statement, I cover that again in the Celiac Crash Course. And if you don't see anything suspicious or anything you need to worry about with the allergy statement and advisory statement, you're going to move into the not safe ingredients. And here you're going to look for obvious ingredients that are gluten. If you don't know what you're looking for, again, don't worry. I cover that in the crash course. And then you'll also look for suspect ingredients. So if there are no not safe ingredients, you'll look for suspect ingredients. If you don't see any suspect ingredients, you will then purchase the item because it's safe. So again, that's the brief way to identify gluten on a food label. I cover this in depth with everything you need to know, including terms and terminology and what everything means on a food label, and also frequently asked questions that I get all the time about food labels in the Celiac Crash Course. But again, if you're doing this on your own, that acronym is a great place to start. The next step to mastering celiac disease is knowing everything you need to know about cross-contact. So a gentle reminder, cross-contact with celiac is when gluten-free food comes into contact with gluten and thus is no longer safe. So I always like to differentiate the difference between gluten-free, which is a food without gluten, and celiac safe, which is a food without gluten that has also not come into contact with gluten. So here it's important you know everything you need to know about celiac safety. You know that every celiac needs to worry about cross-contact. You know that you can manage cross-contact in other people's homes, and you know how to do that. And you know that you can manage cross-contact when dining out, and you also know about managing cross-contact in your home if you are living in a shared home. So I want to say that there's a lot to cover when it comes to cross contact, and your biggest tool is soap and water. That is effective in most scenarios, but I cover everything you need to know about cross contact in the celiac crash course, from what's okay to share in your kitchen, what you need to replace or have a dedicated gluten-free version, how to set up your pantry, how to clean out your pantry, and so much more when it comes to building a celiac safe home, whether it's a dedicated home or a shared home. And I also discuss how to manage cross-contact in other people's homes, as well as identifying cross-contact hotspots in restaurants, again, in the celiac crash course. But when it comes to mastering celiac disease, knowing all that about celiac disease, knowing everything about cross-contact there is to know, is essential to mastery. And speaking of restaurants, it's also essential to mastering celiac disease to be able to dine out safely with celiac disease. So this is essential because dining out is a huge part of our social lives, and we don't want your social life to be at risk because you have celiac disease, and there's no reason why it should be, because it's completely possible to dine out safely with celiac disease. You just need to know exactly what to do when you're dining out. And so there's 5 simple steps that you can remember when it comes to dining out. Make sure that you're planning ahead and you're doing the research that you need to do to identify restaurants that can accommodate you. And this needs to go beyond just searching Find Me Gluten-Free. That is not an end-all be-all, and you definitely should not stop your research there. You want to make sure you're looking at the restaurant menu, you're looking at other reviews, you're calling the restaurant, you're asking the right questions, and when you're dining in, you're asking the right questions, and you know exactly how to keep your order simple while clarifying what you need the restaurant staff to do in order to prevent cross-contact. Because again, Find Me Gluten-Free is a great starting place, but you need to know exactly what you need to communicate and ask in order to ensure that your food is safe for you, because everyone has their own needs. And I'm going to cover exactly how to do that, all the questions to ask, how to order your food so that it's simple and clear, and you get safe food every time, as long as you make sure that you clarify everything you need the restaurant to do, and the restaurant does exactly what you say to do. So I teach you how to do that in the celiac crash course, but this is a great outline. Also, remember to be present. Remember why you're dining out. There's a lot of reasons why people dine out, whether you just want a safe meal that you didn't have to prepare, or you are celebrating maybe a birthday with someone, or you're getting drinks to celebrate a long work week with your coworkers. Be present and remember why you're there, and also try to stay calm, because when you are calm, you prevent symptoms that you're trying to avoid, and you also prevent mishaps when it comes to communicating with service staff. So again, I cover exactly how to dine out safely in the crash course, complete with questions to ask, simulations, and guides on exactly how to order so that you always get safe food. But with that, speaking of communication with service staff, the next step to mastering celiac disease is being able to get people to understand your needs. And this is essential, whether it be you're trying to communicate your needs to service staff or you're trying to communicate your needs to friends and family. It is essential that you know how to communicate them effectively and communicate them while getting rid of all doubts, right? So you can do this by establishing trust, developing credibility, appealing to emotion, and using flattery, stats, and active language. So basically you do this by making sure that that person trusts you and you're saying things that get them to trust you, while also developing credibility in what you're saying. So you could either use like, this research says, or my dietitian said to do XYZ, while also appealing to emotion, doing things like, I know you really want to support me and this is how you can do it. So getting people to understand your needs is absolutely essential to mastering celiac disease. Support is vital to gluten-free success and living gluten-free successfully with celiac disease. So this is an essential step, and I walk you through exactly how to do that with scripts and activities to help you feel confident in the way that you communicate your needs to the people you love and to service staff in the celiac crash course. But this is a great place to start if you're just looking to learn the ropes. Building on that, mastering celiac disease also involves practicing an effective self-care routine, simply because celiac disease drains your cup, and we need to make sure that we're filling that cup so you actually have something to pull from when you're trying to maintain celiac safety. If you're not practicing self-care, if you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be really hard to stay celiac safe because you don't have the energy, you don't have the mental space, the emotional space, the physical space, and so making sure you have an effective self-care routine to prevent that burnout is essential. And there are a couple of key things that you want to make sure in your routine, and I cover all of that, and I give you the resources to develop your own strong self-care routine to prevent burnout in the celiac crash course. So if you need help with that, it's in the crash course, but this is also a great way to just put on your radar. If you're trying to master celiac disease, make sure you're building a self-care routine to prevent celiac burnout. So you're doing things to recover after stressful food events, you're doing things to recover after you've been glutened, you're doing things to make sure that going into a restaurant you have the energy and you have that mental space to make safe decisions. This is where you're basically taking care of yourself so that future self has everything it needs to take care of you. It's basically an investment. So I cover all of that in the crash course, but it's also something you can explore on your own too. And building on mastering celiac disease and self-care, it's also essential that you know how to take care of yourself and know what to do when you've been glutened. And you also know how to tell when you've been glutened. Those are two very important steps to mastering celiac disease. So when you've been glutened, it's essential that you are taking protective and self-soothing measures to support your recovery. And with gluten exposure, there's a lot that can go into recovery, and so I talk all about what to do when you've been glutened in the celiac crash course, complete with a kit that you can build for yourself in order to take care of yourself when you've been glutened to support your recovery. So that's another essential step to mastering celiac disease, knowing exactly what you need to do in order to recover from being glutened, as well as being able to determine if you've been glutened or if you're just sick or you've got food poisoning. And again, I cover all of that in the crash course. The next step to mastering celiac disease is being able to enjoy stressful food events. And stressful food events are things like parties, potlucks, dinner parties, weddings, and really mastery here means being able to minimize stress and actually enjoy the event. And when you're doing that and you're trying to enjoy stressful food events, having a plan for enjoying them and taking care of yourself afterwards is essential to enjoying stressful food events. And so I walk you through how to safely attend dinner parties, potlucks, weddings, etc. in the celiac crash course. That's also something that you can research on your own if you would like, but that is another step that is essential to mastering celiac disease. Next is being able to travel safely, whether this be traveling out of town for a couple of days by car or flying. Being able to travel safely is essential to mastering celiac disease, and there are a couple of steps you need to take, whether it be planning, looking for grocery stores nearby, or having groceries delivered to you. There's a lot that goes into traveling safely with celiac disease, and again, if you want my help, I cover it all in the celiac crash course, but just making sure that you know and you have an idea of what you need to do when you're traveling, whether it be looking for restaurants along your road trip that are safe for you to dine out, or looking at where you're going to be staying and seeing if there are any grocery stores that you can quickly stop in and buy some essentials for, knowing what meals you can prepare in a hotel room or booking a stay with an Airbnb, having translation cards for if you're traveling out of the country. All of that is essential. And all of that and more goes into traveling safely with celiac disease. And again, I cover that in the celiac crash course if you need my help. Almost close to the end. One of the next steps to mastering celiac disease is meal planning and budgeting. So when it comes to living with celiac disease, it is really hard to suddenly have to be in charge of all of your meals and not feel comfortable delegating at the level you likely were when you were able to eat gluten. So meal planning and budgeting can help, one, make sure that eating gluten-free isn't breaking your budget and you can eat gluten-free safely and that you're never running out of access to gluten-free foods, as well as meal planning can make sure that you have foods available and that you have a plan for meals so that you're not getting to a point of making unsafe decisions at the end of the day because you didn't have options and you didn't know what to eat. So with meal planning, it makes your life 10 times easier. It's good for the budget, and I also talk about other budgeting tips in the crash course. I cover a lot of different meal planning tools and budgeting tips in that course, but you can also look up some different methods online. I just share the ones that I found have been the most effective with my clients. So next is being able to balance a gluten-free diet for healing and health. That is actually one of the most important things to mastering celiac disease, because if you can't heal and you're not staying healthy, there's no point. So it's really essential that you know how to balance a gluten-free diet because it can be low in essential nutrients like iron, folate, fiber, vitamin D, and you know how to eat in order to meet those nutrient gaps and to support your health and healing. And that's not something that's often covered, but I absolutely cover how to do exactly that in the crash course if you need my help. And that takes us into health and celiac disease, takes us into one of the last few steps to mastering celiac disease, which is knowing what tests and how to monitor your progress when it comes to healing and your celiac health. So with that, there's a lot to keep in mind, especially as you're healing and how you were diagnosed, but it's essential you understand what tests and how to monitor your progress when it comes to celiac disease. And I cover all of the tests that you need and what you should be looking for when it comes to your testing and monitoring in the celiac crash course if you need that guidance. I also want to say, and it didn't make it into the slide deck, but again, understanding that classroom element and how to keep yourself safe or keep your kids safe in a classroom element is also essential, and I have a module all about that, setting up 504 plans, communicating your needs to teachers, and all of that in the crash course as well. So with all of that said, a lot goes into mastering celiac disease, and I cover everything you need to know right now to start living celiac safe in the celiac crash course. So if you want help or you need more help, definitely check out the course. It was developed by me, a celiac registered dietitian, in order to help more celiacs know exactly how to stay safe without all of the misinformation and doubt and fear that comes with asking Google forums and Facebook groups and stuff like that. This is everything you need to know. No foo-foo information, no misinformation. This is just facts and action steps that you can take today to make sure that you are staying celiac safe. So my question for you is, are you ready for a clear plan of action on how to stay celiac safe? Because if you are, the Celiac Crash Course is an excellent resource for you to sign up for and start using today so that you can start practicing celiac safety with utmost confidence, because you know that you have gotten all of this information from a reputable source and you have action steps that you can start practicing. So if you're ready for a clear plan of action on how to stay celiac safe, sign up for the Celiac Crash Course. It's the best resource that you'll get when it comes to mastering celiac disease.